Hi, and welcome to RealClearFetish Talks RealClearPlay, a podcast that dives into sobriety, kink, and everything in between. This week is the second episode of the season, and we're going to the States again. And welcome to the podcast, Moshiel.
Hi, everyone.
How are we doing?
We are doing great. How are you?
I'm very good. It's finally starting to be summer here, or spring. We just had 25 degrees here, Celsius, not
I was
Fahrenheit.
like, that sounds freezing.
Very cold, yes, but no, not Fahrenheit, but Celsius. So it's probably slightly larger number than for you, but it's warm. It's like a nice, comfortable warm, which is
I
great.
love that.
So, like with every episode I do four standard questions at the start, and then we'll just see where the conversation goes.
Awesome.
Fantastic. What do you prefer I call you? Names, pronouns, and title.
Moshiel, he, him, and you could call me whatever title you deem appropriate given our relationship.
That's a good answer, really, because that leaves it open to a lot of suggestions.
Exactly.
And that's more fun as well. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Ooh, where do I begin? I mean, for the context of this podcast, I guess I'm a podcast virgin, so there's that. I didn't think I had any left, but I guess you're taking one of my last ones.
We'll take it slow and we'll use lots of lube and it'll be fine.
Exactly, right? I'll At the end of this, I'll be begging for more podcasts. Be like, please give me more. So I am like 12 and a half years sober. I got sober when I was 20, which is pretty incredible for me at least. I was raised as an Orthodox Jewish boy on Long Island in New York, and I am a kinky leather person. I think that sums it up.
That's just a little short intro to
You
yourself.
know, just a little intro.
A little tease, a little tease. Already answered the question, but I always ask this question just for clarity for whoever listens. Completely sober, clear-headed, or social drinker?
I live in California, but I am not California sober. I am, yeah, strictly sober from the neck up by the grace of God.
What is clear play to you and why is it important?
Mm. Well, I just said like neck up. So I guess like that's like a good jumping off point. For me, it's just like the ability to stay present. And I guess like stay in your body until the play takes you out of your body, right? Let the play be the drug that gets you out. And it's, for me as a sober person, it's very important. But also from like a safety perspective, when you get into like harder scenes, it's pretty imperative for me that we stay clear and communicative.
So, in your short intro, you mentioned you became sober when you were 20. How
hmm
much more before 20 could happen? When did you start, if I may ask? Because
that's a
that's pretty young.
yeah, no, that's a that it was the star burned bright and fast. It certainly got to a point where, you know, when I was first getting sober, a lot of people in meetings and such were like, I spilled more than you drank type of thing, which is very like classic New York sobriety, where I first got sober. For me, it wasn't so much about like what the substances I was using or like the frequency. It was about how I felt and like the spiritual bankruptness that was a part of me. Like I was clearly filling a hole and not in a way that, we like to fill holes. But
Absolutely.
I studied abroad when I was 18 and the legal age was 18. I was away from my parents and it was just this like kind of 2 years of like really just heavy, dark, lonely. And it was really, to me, getting sober that young was a gift. It means that I got to grow up in sobriety. And, I was very lucky that I got sober before things got really horrible. And I was able to, make a positive change for myself.
I think it's important when we're talking about sobriety. It's not about how much you use and how long you used. It's about how it makes you feel. And I'm going to tell you a little anecdote. And it one of the reasons I asked that question is because I have sat in a meeting before where there was a 20-year-old there, and I was so angry. And this is nothing to do with the person. That was to do with me. But
Yeah.
like you say, you've been in meeting where some people have just like you've spilled more drinks than you've had kind of thing. I just left that meeting feeling really angry. It's like I used for 9 years and I like damaged myself. And they're like, he used for 1 year? How dare you sit there and be happy? But then again, it's all about how it makes you feel. And
Yeah, and it's so funny because whenever people bring up that topic, I always think about this one time I think I had about like 7 or 8 years sober at the time. I was speaking at a meeting,
mm,
and I was just sharing about whenever I share, I always talk about, when I got sober. I think it's important
mm,
to hear that, if you feel like you have a problem when you're young, you can get sober and stay sober.
absolutely.
And this person shared, and they must have been like in their upper 40s, low 50s. And, he raised his hand and he said, I remember you when you first got here. And I couldn't help but like think to myself what my life would be like if I got sober when I was 20. And now, like 5 years later, I'm, getting sober again. I have 30 days. And all I can think about is like what my life would have been like if I would have just stayed sober alongside you.
Mm.
And to me, that's always like when I talk to people who, either in kink spaces or out at like, just regular like nightlife spaces, because I was a drag queen for 5 years in New York, and believe it or not, brought a lot of people into sobriety through that. When I talk to people about that, and I'm like, if you feel like you have a problem and you're sitting at a meeting, chances are you probably don't have the healthiest relationship with substances. And chances are you can probably benefit from this. To me, it's all about like that camaraderie and that fellowship and that staying with the people and finding those people, finding a tribe like this of people who want the same things as you, who share the same beliefs as you, and sticking with it.
Yeah, it's like representation is so important when it comes to sobriety, and sobriety looks different. There's different ages, different genders, like different backgrounds. It's not all the stereotype like people who are not in the know. They kind of have an expectation of what a recovery meeting might look like. And it's just not true. And especially when we come to the LGBTQ plus community, it's because a lot of us are high functioning and because of
Or we'd like to think we
we
are.
like to think we're high functioning, but in generally we keep down a job in most cases, and it's just at the end maybe it just falls off the track. But in generally, a lot of people go for many years before they actually come into recovery.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that has to be said about the bar that we as a community set for ourselves. And,
Mm,
the idea that like a lot of things that we do or deem to be like appropriate or even like part of who we are, to other people are just, not the healthiest practices. And that idea of like, where do we stand as a community on these things?
absolutely. So you mentioned you were a drag queen for 5 years in New York. Tell me a little bit about that.
Where to begin? Well, her name was Lady SinAGaga. She
Appropriate for a Jewish boy, yes.
was drag's Jewish American princess. Yeah, I had a little Star of David on every single one of my makeups, and Stars of David. It was a whole thing. It was very, Barbara meets Lady Gaga. It was amazing. I remember the first time I saw a drag queen was, I was in Sober Living in LA, and I went to this like AA drag show, and the person who ended up becoming my first sponsor was in drag. And it was terrifying to me. I think it was terrifying because there was so much identification. Like I was this little Hasidic Jewish boy who like wanted to be a performer, and the world I was living in was like not, it was not about it. Like there was no way that I was going to do that. I remember as a little kid, I wanted to do gymnastics, but I couldn't because it was like co-ed classes. Like it was not an opportunity that I was afforded. So when I came out and, you know, started this new life, sober, gay, I came out in rehab. So there was just this freedom that I embraced. And I moved to New York and I started school and was going out and seeing these drag queens and was just like, I can do that. Because that, like, that's just about like being a presence. Like, that's just like being someone who like makes people happy. And I started doing it. I picked the name before I started. I always say that like picking the name was the best thing I ever did in drag, and after that, it was all downhill. Um, but it was such a special time in my life. Yeah, drag queens are fucking superheroes.
In the last season, I had Selena Estetis on, and she was absolutely a star, and it was just such a fun time talking to her.
She's the best. I love Jason. We got sober together.
Oh,
Uh,
fab.
yeah, like when I came to LA, he, I believe, had like a year sober, and he was one of those. I have pictures of us like from a decade ago when I was a little tiny twink and he had just started doing drag. And then he was doing drag in LA and I was doing drag in New York. And we were just kind of like growing together, and seeing him like get on Drag Race and all the success he's had since then has just been so amazing to watch. He's the best.
It was a lovely chat, and he was the season final of last season, so it was just such a lovely time, and we talked about saunas and cum dumps. It was great.
I love that. Listen, if you've heard his story, that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, absolutely. And what I loved about Jason was he didn't hold back, which was
Yeah.
great. And this is what is important when we're talking about representation and talking your truth and where you came from and stuff like that. So you mentioned you were a twink. I would say when there's been ongoing on Instagram at the moment, there's been like twink death at the moment. You've seen them. I did
I've
one
seen that.
myself. So when did the twink death happen for you?
Oh my God. I mean, isn't anyone saying they're a twink death in itself? Um, no, I think it's funny. Because I've seen that and I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. But yeah, I mean, I guess like twink death, when did that happen for me? Probably when I got sober and like just needed so much sugar in my body that I just shoved anything into my mouth. But yeah, I mean, listen, the body is an ever-changing thing. I think I have had like the privilege of being able to be like kind of this identity chameleon that I, you know, became a drag queen, then I forayed that right into like leather pageantry. And I love just being able to like sit on the boundaries and being able to like put my foot into a lot of things. It's funny because I thought about that when you asked the question, like, what titles like do I have? Like, there are a lot of people that call me sir and a lot of people that call me daddy. And I'm like, you're not going to call me sir or daddy because you don't know me like that, right? And I always find it funny that people who like impose that on a stranger. They're like, you must call me sir. I'm like, okay, ma'am. Like, like it's just like, okay, like if everyone can do it, it kind of means nothing. But everyone has the ability to self-identify, so that's a lovely part of who we are. I mean, clearly.
That's one of the reasons I start with, because I think pronouns are really important, especially in the climate we're in at the moment. I mentioned in the last episode, the UK is in a weird space at the moment because of this whole Supreme Court ruling,
Yeah.
which defines women, and oof, it's a whole
I
lot.
do think, and this is going to be my hot take. I do think there is a huge, not I think there is a huge difference. I know there is a huge difference between pronouns and titles. The thing that bothers me more than anything in the world is, those shirts that say he, him, whole? I think,
Yes.
I think that is the most transphobic pile of garbage, mainly perpetrated by like cis bottoms that think they're like kikiing. But it's so like diminutive to the idea of like pronouns and self-identification. And like I will literally walk over to people and like just start like using the pronoun whole with them just to point out like how stupid that idea is. And I think the same is true, like the like Instagram leather sirs do it all the time. Like my pronouns are he, him, sir. It's like, no, they're not. Like your pronouns are like he, him, accountant. Like calm down. And it's just, oof, I just got myself mad there. But
No,
I,
no, no. Do you know what? I'll put my hand up to that one. When Grindr introduced pronouns on their app,
oh,
I must admit I did it myself to start with before I understood the implications of it.
100%. Yeah, no, and that's so valid. I mean, I think like part of being, you know, not to throw the term, but part of being an ally is like realizing when we make mistakes. Like realizing like, I have the privilege of like having a trans partner and I've been wrong a lot. I've learned a lot of things. There's nuance that I've been able to like from a very first-hand place be able to like see and realize and understand in a way that like even the most well-intentioned like cis allies like sometimes like are just like there's little nuances that I'm like, oh no, don't say that. Oh no, don't say that. Like change that. And it's not they don't realize it. And the real test of someone who like has the interests at heart are like, oh my God, I didn't realize that. I'm so sorry. Boom, change, done. But the people that throw up the fits that are like, what do you want? I'm trying my best. It's like, no, you're not. Like if you're trying your best, you just like change it and keep going. Like, yeah, throw away the he him whole shirt you got on Amazon for $13,
Which probably doesn't support any LGBT
which,
stuff
which
anyway.
is which is unsustainable and exactly and all the other things. But yeah, I mean, listen, a lot of people did that, but not like I mean, in our Lord's year of 2025, people's pronouns on Grindr being anything but an actual pronoun, yeah, it's a thing.
Oh, I like on Instagram, I have my pronouns on there, and I got blocked by someone because they like, oh, I don't subscribe to pronouns. It's like, but you can function without a pronoun. So he was just like, no, no, I don't follow profiles that has pronouns in there, and I'm just like, how small are your boots?
It's so funny. There's this, not gonna boost them. Also, I don't even know who they are, but there is like a country song by this like, you know, country person called like I don't use pronouns or something like that. And like someone on TikTok posted a video counting the amount of pronouns they used like in the video. And it's like before you get to the first chorus, they've already used like 15 pronouns. And it's like, you're so stupid.
It's like you see the goalpost and you just miss completely.
You just turn around and shoot in your own goal.
Absolutely. So you mentioned you have a trans partner. Have you ever had issues around that with engaging with other fetish folk? I know over here sometimes there can be issues.
No, I don't.
There shouldn't be any issues,
I
that's for sure.
I think we do a very good job of finding like surrounding ourselves with the right people. Like,
Hmm.
the idea, and I learned this in sobriety, like we are the company we keep. And when people are saying the wrong things, I'm like, oh, that's not, for me, there's the imperative of like, not only is this not a good place, it's not a safe place. So I try my best to like avoid those people. And I think we collectively like feel that way also. Like we know go where the light is, go where the warmth is. And I think, yeah, I mean, it's funny because my IML speech last year was, a lot about him and just the idea of opening, our community to the idea that like trans men are men and they belong in male spaces. And this idea that if you have a problem with that, like you don't belong in our spaces. There's a lot of Europeans recently that have been running their mouth with the whole like exactly. And
It's almost to the extent of it's almost a little bit embarrassing how much that's been.
oh, I was talking with my dear friend Tom, Mr. Leather Europe.
Yeah.
He's the sweetest.
He's my title grandson.
Ah, he's the best.
He is.
But he was like, I'm so embarrassed on behalf of all Europeans. Like, this isn't, and I know that's not what European, like, I know so many incredible Europeans, but recently there's just been like little mouthy bitches, and it's like, it's just so pathetic. It's just so small. It's so pathetic. And like, that's when I'm like, oh, you're not a leather person. You're like a sad little boy that's dressing up as a police officer. Like, because you didn't get loved as a child, like, and your space and your concept of masculinity and dominance and safety is so contrived and performative that you need to like boost the enemy, and that's what you need to do to feel safe and like that. That's exactly what I'm talking. The people whose pronouns are sir, like these Venn diagrams are circles, you know? And it's like going back to like having a problem with people with who we are. Like I don't associate with those people, you know, because it's you can see it from a mile away, and it's like, oh, okay, like I'd much rather go to the people who I know I'm gonna like have deep, meaningful relationships with and like get deep and meaningful in other ways, you know?
Yeah, I think it's I definitely cut people off where I'm just like, no, you're not aligning with my values.
Yeah.
That is do what you want to do, but that doesn't align with what I believe. And I think that's so important. So you mentioned you did IML last year with Tom. Yes,
Yes.
I knew you had, so I just
Okay.
put mine on.
I got mine right there. Boom.
Fantastic. Well,
Right.
I interviewed one of your classmates yesterday.
Oh,
Or
woo.
the other day, LTJ
We
Reed.
love. Oh, yes. I actually just realized that this is not my first podcast. I've done his podcast.
There you go. We did talk about that. We
There
did
you
talk
go.
about throwing light, which is such a lovely concept. So,
Oh my God.
um,
Absolutely.
where did your lever journey phasing into your title journey start?
Hmm. Well, I was a pageant girl. You know, if I moved my computer, you'd see like one, two, three, four, five crowns up there. So
Was that with that was with the drag you did pageants?
with the drag, yeah. I don't know leather titles that that give a crown. That would be amazing.
I'm sure there
Um,
is. I'm sure there is.
that's definitely a European thing, but I love that. But yeah, I moved to LA and I was kind of in the scene. I had a really good friend, David Sanford, who was like taking me around and bringing me in. And I remember, I tried on my first set of formals at Rough Trade and just felt it, just put them on and was like, oof. And then started talking about like the different titles and getting the like you should run. And I remember getting in a fight with this old like school Leatherman, because I was like, oh, it's a pageant, and he was like, it is not a pageant,
It
it's a
is.
it's a contest. And I was like, honey, the only thing that you have that I mean the only thing they have that you don't have is a talent category. And he was
Oh
like, oh,
no, we have a talent category in Mr. Europe.
I know, I
Yeah.
know.
So no.
Well, exactly. And when there is a talent category, I'm like, now it's really a pageant. And like I liked the idea of like being able to like feel like I was really a part of the community. That's obviously not to say that you need to be like a title holder to be a part of it, but like it really does help like throw you into the scene.
Mm.
Uh, because you're going to other events, you're like representing for yourself in the title, and in LA there's a lot of titles and a lot of drama, but a lot of like camaraderie at the end of the day. I met like in my title year, like Marcus was Mr. Eagle, and there were a bunch of others that I got super close with. I waited a year to go to IML because my title was like a 2 year, you could either go that year or next year, and I wanted to give it a little bit of time.
Hmm.
But I think that was kind of the foray into into the title world. And then it was like an 18-month kind of build up into IML.
IML is very much like Hunger Games. You have the professional title holders, you have the ones that there to have a good time, you have the ones that have like sponsors coming out of their ears. It's
Yeah.
it's 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 a very interesting melding pot. I'm sure it's changed a lot since I did it. I did it in 2009.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm old.
Oh,
I was only 24 when I competed, though.
there you go.
I was a baby.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, I still felt like a baby competing. It is an experience like no other. It's an experience that I'm so grateful for. I'm so grateful that it is over and I never have to do it again. But, right after I won SoCal Leather, I knew what I wanted to do. Like, I knew that I wanted to show like leather in a way that wasn't like tied to like a uniform or like any sort of like I wanted it to feel like me. I wanted it to be different and I wanted it to be fashionable and wearable and authentic. So I was like, formals, I'm gonna wear a tux. And Adrian from Rough Trade made everything I wore. He's a wizard. And he made me this gorgeous double-breasted shawl collar tuxedo for final night, which, is probably the most expensive thing I own that I probably only going to wear once, but it's in the closet, so that's all that matters. And then, starting even for number draw, I wanted to wear, an A-frame tank top and jeans because that's what I wear to the bar. My title vest, a white tank top, and jeans, and we did it all in leather, and people were like gagged. They were walking up to me after number draw and was like, "Is that leather? Is that leather?" Because he like hand stitched each line to make it look like it was ribbed, and people were just blown away. And that Rough Trade actually now sells that tank top. Like a lot of the things they made for me custom, they now sell as like part of their inventory, which I feel like so honored by. It was funny because Adrian was like, "I'm gonna like, we normally like wait so you can like wear it for a little bit." And I'm like, no, like it's like it by the end of IML, like six people had ordered it. And I was like, make it for them. Like, of course. So it was just like there was a lot of buildup and there was a lot of community involvement. There was a lot of like people close to me. Like I had my handler, David Sanford. I had like Ralph Bruneau, who I'm super close with, who was like very involved towards the end, like in kind of fine tuning everything. But it really is like Leather Hunger Games.
It is. Like my year, I remember being backstage and someone slapped someone's ass and they had a complete fucking meltdown. It's like, you can see the mark on stage now. I was just like, yeah, that would add to it,
Oh
surely.
my God, absolutely. Absolutely. That's so funny. I don't think we had any meltdowns. Unless I was the one melting down. I think I was the one melting down.
I
You know,
think I think my year I was quite sheltered because I think a lot of the people there, without even not making it obvious to me, but they were like, he's very young. He's very naive, he's very blue-eyed. Let's just huddle around him, make sure he has a nice time. So
aw,
I really had like the best time doing IML.
that's
I,
amazing.
I didn't go in with the expectation of winning. I was 24, first time stateside, just like deer in headlights. But I had the best time, and it was just like the best class I was in. So,
I love that.
and
I
I
love that.
still talk to some of my classmates now, which is so important.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was interesting. Like, I had, you know, and to bring it like into like kind of sobriety and that idea of like expectations, I like went in like really was not, I was just like, I'm really thrilled to be here. I really just want to say my speech. I really just want to make top 20 and show everything I came to do and leave it all on the table and say my speech. And I remember so clearly. So I did interviews and then Pecs and Personalities. They like split interview before and after Pecs and Personalities. So after Pecs and Personalities, I was done for prelim. I had done everything. And I was at Subway, right next to the Congress, with like me, Beck, David, and Ralph. And I was a mess. I was like, I messed up my interview. I brought up the Holocaust with Gail Rubin. Like, what I don't know what came out of my mouth, and I was in my head, and then I had a really strong prelim group. Like out of my group of 10, I think 6 of us made it into the top 20. So I was just like comparing myself to like that 10, and out of that 10 it was a really strong 10. So I was like, I didn't make it. I was like, I didn't make top 20. And Ralph was like, you're an idiot. And I was like, look, if I like get my scores on Monday and I'm like second, you can call me an idiot for the rest of my life. I got my scores on Monday, and going into final night I was in first place. And Ralph now calls me an idiot for the rest of my life. But to me, that was the biggest like lesson. I thought final night I killed it, and apparently I went from here to there. But for me, it was such an important lesson in like perception
Mm.
and the idea that like if I get out of my own way and let people experience me in the way that I'm coming across and like and sit in that reality, I'm doing great. But the second I start comparing myself to others, comparing myself to like a version of myself that didn't exist, I like am my own worst. I'm like, I was literally being judged, and the judges were literally like, you were one. And I was like, oh, I failed. I'm done. But that to me is like alcoholism at its best.
Mm.
It's taking us out of the race when we're literally, it's like you're running the race and you're like, I don't see anyone. I'm like clearly in last place. And it's like because they're all behind you, but you're like quitting. And that was with me. That was with me going to all the meetings. I was so like, so IML it was just an experience. Like it's so hard to describe. Like there were so many emotions, but I'm so like I was everything that happened exactly the way it needed to happen.
It's such a unique experience, and it's very hard to explain it to someone who's not gone through it. The way I explain it to people is I go, have you ever watched Miss Congeniality and thought they were a bit silly? But when you've done IML, you relate to that movie quite well.
It's so funny because I was talking to the board about like, the production and all that, and I was like, how funny would it be if there's like an opening number, not necessarily like you're one in a million, but like if we do some sort of thing, that would be so funny. But I always think of that, first scene where everyone's representing. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
Jamal comes down as like the reigning IML, just in a pup hood.
You could just have all the title holders come in up to the mic and say where they're from, like France, like all those Miss Universe ones, which we're all laughing at because they just yell their country.
Well, it's so funny because for Pex and like for the last 3 years they've done, or the last 2 years they've done the like I call it the IML Real Housewives tagline. They used to do like a pop when you did it, they did a pop question, right?
Yeah, that's where I fell on my face. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, that was
that,
where I missed my top 20. That's
that's that's what the pop question is for. But so they stopped doing the pop question, and then like I think 3 years ago they like gave the pop question in advance, so you
yeah.
knew. But then so 2 years ago and my year they told us to say a sentence about who you are, and
Oh.
I call it the Real Housewives of IML tagline, and mine was. My name is Moshiel, Mr. SoCal Leather 2023, a sadistic, kinky, tatted Jew who's been gaslighting tops since 1992. Then I just turned around and like slapped my ass. Uh,
That's great. My tagline, the at least for Mr. Europe, I is that I believe in world peace and free fisting.
I love that needs to be on a t-shirt. I believe world peace and free, and it's funny because a bunch of the contestants from this current year, which they have a huge class, they just announced there's
Mm.
like
Oh yeah,
68.
yeah.
I've been workshopping like some lines with them. I'm like, listen, this is like you got one line, just
Oh,
deliver.
it's very like walking in the workroom. You have to make an impression kind of thing.
It's an entrance line, 100%. And when you get it, you get it. And I think a lot of that, like people forget that IML is like a stage show, and you have to give the people a show.
Oh, absolutely. And I watched MIR last year
Oh,
because my pop competed. So I watched the whole thing and the production value in that. Oh my God.
wild. That is like, they do like an opening number. MIR is so incredible. And I mean, I know the last two MIRs, they're amazing. I mean, somehow San Francisco is just holding on to that title. Not somehow, they're amazing. But
Well, my pop came second runner up, so I was very, very, very proud.
good. I mean, listen, Europe produces, in terms of like rubber production,
Mm.
it's Europe. Like we have like a few people that are just starting to make some amazing rubber locally. I got my rubber at Darklands when I went.
Was the Fetish Daddy?
Not fast. Do I look like I'm made of?
I don't.
I wish it was fetish patty. I'm actually staying with Ollie this weekend, so
Like,
maybe I'll pay off some rubber.
just like, just wink a little bit, like, please.
No, he's not. But
I am lucky to own an outfit. I have a pair of rubber leggings and I have a waistcoat with my Real Clear Fetish logo on it,
oh wow.
which was made by Tish. And
Oh,
I was just like, oh, it's beautiful. And
so,
the amount of detail, I was just like, you've seen my logo. It's quite intricate.
yeah.
So making that rubber, I was like, at the moment, I'm getting not from Fetish Daddy, somewhere else, slightly cheaper. I'm getting a leather waistcoat made with my Real Clear Fetish logo on it because I want something to wear when I'm out.
Listen, the one thing Fetish Daddy does so incredibly well is detail.
Oh yeah.
And they will Beck, my partner has like a custom like chaps and vest, and we like created this like harness vest combo, and Ollie is just he does such impeccable work. I just need to find someone to buy me stuff for them. So if anyone wants to buy me Fetish Daddy.
Yeah, it's like, and also by the way, I'm not sponsored by Fetish Daddy. This is not why we're talking about them. Uh,
Right? But maybe now we'll what season are you on?
this season? Oh, it's
Yeah.
season 9.
Oh, maybe season 10 will be sponsored by Fetish Daddy.
Oh, so you mentioned that you entertainer, emceeing, fundraising. A proud sober Leatherman has also made his mark off Broadway as a producer. Political Spoof 5.
Hmm.
What is that?
So Five was a parody of a show that actually originated in the UK. I'm sure you've heard of Six, the musical.
Yes.
So I actually co-created and produced Five before we actually thought that, he would come back. It was like, Biden was in office and we were like, oh, it's going to be Kamala. We made this like parody about the, five women in his life, about like who had it the worst. And at the time, it was really cathartic to laugh about it, And then life happened.
Hmm.
And now it's not really cathartic to laugh about it. But it actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but it might actually be coming to the UK. Interesting, but exclusive. But who knows? That might happen.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first.
And I
Come
will definitely go and see that because that sounds
yeah,
really fun.
to a little festival nearby. But yeah, no, but it was one of these moments of like, higher power in the world just like falling into the right place at the right time. Like when I got sober, even like 3 years ago, like never would have thought that I'd be like like an off-Broadway like writer or producer. Like that idea was like not ever something that I was like, I mean, I was an avid theater consumer. I love the theater, but the idea that I'd be like making something was like never really on my radar. And then it just happened. Like I was with the right people. I was at the right place. I had the right idea at the right time and found, and it just all worked. And, now I'm going to London to help produce a new show that is very different than Five. One is a musical about, our 45th president's like women, and it's like a spoof. And this new project called Fagala is a play about a Hasidic Jewish boy that comes out of the closet and kills himself. Um,
Yeah, very different. Yes.
Very different. But like I said, like I love sitting on a boundary and containing multitudes. So like we could do both things at the same time. Well, not at the same time, but we can
That
do
would be
both,
an interesting show. Yes.
yeah, together. That
Yeah.
would be, but I think, that idea that the queer experience is multifaceted, and we need those really happy campy moments to balance out the other moments, and then sometimes the happy campy moments turn into like trauma, and then we need the trauma moments to be cathartic. It's all a cycle.
Well, theatre is made to make you think, challenge you. So, do you do this for a living, or is it just like a side hustle?
It's a side hustle. It's like a soul like feeding mission. I don't know that I'd be feeding myself that well on just
Just that.
theater. But yeah, it really just, when I talk about theater, it just like lights me up. I mean, it's very much like leather. It's very much like drag was for me. It's the idea that like, you know, we have to find what makes us feel, and then just like go for it.
I think my impression of you is you're a very creative person and artistic and just you don't just follow everyone else. And I think that's really cool when we talk about the leather community, where it can be a bit rigid, it can be archetypes, like you have to be a clone, all this. And I'm sitting here in a police uniform with a mustache. I'm not necessarily going my own path, but I feel like I'm comfortable in what I present. But
Yeah.
I think it's so cool when you see leather outfits that kind of go outside that mold. It doesn't always have to be this. And I think that's so cool. And also when like creativity, I sing in the London Gay Men's Chorus. I do this. What was it? On 1st of April, I did an April Fool's joke saying I was just gonna move over to be an influencer full time, and everyone is like, "Oh, that sounds amazing." It's like I could make money off this. Come
You're
on.
like, no, this was a joke, and people were like, yes.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's not true." But yeah, if you got to pay my rent, that would be fine. Then I would love to do this all the time.
Listen, you never know. Maybe that was the universe telling you to go for it.
I'm not making money on this. It's it's what I get from interviewing people like you and the feedback I get. That's my nourishment from this.
And
Absolutely.
listen, I think, I mean, like the idea of being like visible on a social platform about sobriety, but on a social platform that's like focused on like leather fetish and kink about sobriety is like such necessary representation. And it's funny because as I've been throwing these things, I'm like, oh no, he's wearing like a police shirt. What am I? I'm like, but I know that that's you, and I know that that's not, you're not like taking the things I'm saying and being like,
No, 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 no. Do you know what? It's like my puppy, he doesn't like uniforms mainly because he feels like this is what it stands for, blah, 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 blah. And I respect that. It's not for everyone. It's just about like being conscientious for people around you. And if that's not for you, that's not for you. And that's
yeah.
perfectly good.
And I think that's the secret sauce. Like it's just
Mm.
about like being in community is about being in community and realizing like there's a time and place for things, and like what is the intention, what's like the historical like impact, and like the idea of how does that exist in like where we are now. Like, am I doing this for me? Am I doing this for other people? Am I doing this and it's hurting other people? And that's a moment when like, for me, when people get to a place where it's like, I don't care, this is who I am, I'm gonna do it anyway.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
That's when I like,
yeah.
that's when that's when the fists go from this to this.
Yeah. Well, some people like that. So.
Listen,
Mm.
I no
For
no.
anyone listening, he just went from a very narrow fist to a clenched fist.
I mean, that is false advertising. My fists do not really collapse that narrowly.
See,
I,
mine do. Mine do.
those are. See, mine are, yeah.
See,
I
I always kind of like when people ask me how big my hands are, I say I have small hands. It's either beginner hands or double fisting hands. You choose.
There you go.
And then I
I
have
know.
a tattoo with writing here where I'm just like, do you want a consonant or a vowel?
Oh, see, I always say make make Medusa disappear.
For anyone listening, yeah, there's lots of tattoos going on, and I'm so fascinated by those. There's so many of them that are so beautiful as well.
Thank you. Yeah, we got a couple.
Well, I have a little bit, but yeah, mine are not as sharp as yours though. Oh my God, they're like printed on. I hate I can't get that. Mine bleed a bit when I get
Oh,
them.
they do.
Just to round the episode off, I noticed that you are the founder of Punch.
Hmm.
Tell me a little bit about Punch. Now that we were talking about fisting.
Yeah, I mean that's like a perfect
Yeah,
segue.
I know. It's like I've done this
So,
before.
yeah. I at the time was I had gone up to San Francisco and there was this Red Hanky social that we went to and it was so great. And I was like, we don't have anything like this in LA. And we have people who throw parties like privately and all that, and those are great. But I was like, we don't have a space like this. And there was a bar that had this really like robust play section that I'm not going to mention just because for their own protection.
Hmm.
I approached the bar owner and I was like, could we throw a fisting party here? And he was like, absolutely. And one of my really close title brothers, his name is Yair. He threw a party there called You're In, and
Fun.
it just it literally the play area just had like two kiddie pools in the back, and they just splish splash. They were taking a bath, and so it was like You're In and Punch, and it was so incredible that just the reception from LA, and I was like, I want to throw a party like for my people. So it was just like a completely gender expansive fisting party. And there were like trans men fisting cis guys. There was like lesbians fisting each other. There was like I fisted a straight guy. Like it was just like wild. It was like I wish I got there and after the first party I was like, this is magic. This is just like the space. It's so amazing, and I'm sure you feel this way about this podcast. Like seeing something that you created like be exactly what you wanted it to be.
Hmm.
And it's such a good feeling because it means that like the people who you connected with you and brought the right people that they connect with, and it was perfect. And that idea, it's so funny. I remember like the first at the first one, like walking over to the playroom, and there was this trans guy I knew in the sling, and when like everyone's kind of like in a dark room and they're kind of like jerking off and like surrounding the sling, and they like walk up to it, and it was that moment where I was like, am I gonna like I was worried. I was like, oh no, am I gonna need to like correct some people? Are they and they just looked and like kept going, and they were like, oh, everyone was into it. And I was like, I like exhaled. I was like, fuck yes. And it just got crazier and crazier. Unfortunately, the like alcohol commission kind of found out about that space and shut it down, and it's hard to have a fisting party without fisting. So
Yeah.
we threw a few parties that were super successful. One of my friends, Rogelio, started a similar party called Fillers. We were kind of like cross promoting at the same time, and now they're kind of like they've revved up. They're going and they're doing so well, and I'm so happy for that. But yeah, we're looking at other venues and other opportunities. But I was just so happy to like bring a space like that to LA because you would think LA has everything, but apparently they didn't have a gender expansive fisting party.
But they had now. And
Now they have two.
they have two. And that's amazing. See, that's the sad thing with Europe. I don't think Europe is ready for that. I don't think you would. I'm happy to put my hands up and be pleasantly surprised if I walked into a fisting party and it was all inclusive, but I don't think they're ready for it. But we'll
And, you
see what
know,
the future brings.
it's something that that I've like talked to people about, like the idea that like I think people don't know what they're ready for.
Hmm.
I think there's like such a fear of like the unknown. And like I've seen that so much, like just personally, of like people not knowing and then realizing and then being like,
Oh yeah.
oh yes,
Oh yes.
oh absolutely. Uh, and the idea that I just feel sad for people who like just use, I think I think specifically in that arena, like a lot of it comes down to like cis gay trauma. The coming out process is so like I feel like you so need to like attach yourself to this misogynist idea of that certain body parts are just repulsive, and you need that to be able to like come out, to validate your experience. And it's so rooted in just fear and trauma, and seeing people like realize that that's so ridiculous and like getting past that, and being able to just like some of the like kinkiest, horniest fuckers I know are like trans people. And I mean that in like the most complimentary way.
I
So
was
it's
not
just
expecting it to be anything else.
right,
Absolutely.
exactly. So it's like that idea that like I think maybe Europe is ready for it and they just don't even know it. And we just have to keep pushing.
I definitely have people in my friend group who are very open-minded and level-headed and know what they want and just downright pigs. So they are just like going for it, and I commend that. And personally, I've never been with a trans man, but I'm also like, if it happens, it happens, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not against it. Absolutely not.
I mean, we had a call for Fetish Daddy to sponsor, but I guess this is a like if there are any trans men who want to slide into the DMs and
Oh, absolutely. Slide in if you want. Absolutely. I'm not against that.
for those who are just listening, there is some serious blushing going on.
But we're coming to the end of the episode.
We
Yeah, I'm
are.
happy now. But we're coming to the end of the episode. Just a little two fun questions, or one fun, one serious question at the end. What is your favorite piece of kit?
My favorite piece of, I assume for the Americans, that's like gear.
Yeah.
My favorite piece of gear this is a good question. Would have to be so for IML for our last like erotic wear, Adrian made me this vintage jock, this white vintage like 3-inch waistband, ribbed like pocket, but it's fully leather, and it just looks so sexy to the point where after IML, people were like, "Why weren't you wearing leather on stage?" And I was like, I was. But yeah, it's my favorite. I love that.
After you talked about the white shirt, and I was just like, I may have to put in an order for that because I do like wearing a white shirt with a leather vest. So yeah, I may have to put in an order for
Listen,
that.
it's so good. It's so good. But yeah, definitely my recommendation for that is definitely try it on because it's so size specific. So when you come out and rough trade is like at IML or something, definitely try it on. But yeah, you should get one.
And if you had a piece of advice to someone who became sober at the same age you did,
Ooh, a piece of advice I would have to someone who got sober when I got sober would be to, ooh, that's like almost gonna get me emotional. Just be open to the possibilities of change. I've changed so many times over and over. And that idea of like, in the program, we say like, we will love you until you learn to love yourself. And I, over the last 12 years, have fallen in and out of love with myself because 12 years is a long time. But that idea that like I can keep finding myself and be supported by people, find people who will support you and who have your best interest at heart and who will love you no matter what. And like the world is yours.
That's lovely. And if anyone's listened or watched and they've connected with something you've said or they're curious about something, where can they get a hold of you?
You can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is Omoshi Didn't. For those who are just listening, I just weaved and bobbed my head.
Hmm.
I love that. And it's OHMOSHEDIDNT. I'm on there.
Fantastic. I'll let them slide into your DM so you can talk to them.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
And
Okay.
that was Moshiel this week. It's been absolute joy to talk to him, his experience, his long sobriety, his kink, his fisting, whatever he brought to the plate. And it was just so much to talk about there. It's been great. So I'll be back in 2 weeks' time again for the next episode, but go out and be kinky, be sober, and just go out and have fun. Bye.